Hello everyone, welcome to the Power Academy. This topic is actually related to the Ukrainian crisis. Here in this topic, I would like to tell you about an unexpected incident happened in the Ukraine-Poland border when the Indian student tried to cross to the Poland to evade the crisis in Ukraine. As we know, there are at least 20,000 Indian students, those who were pursuing the medical study in Ukraine. And they all got stuck when the Russia invaded Ukraine 4 days back. 4,000 students has been evacuated from the Ukraine by the Indian officials. But the 16,000 got stuck. They are still there in the Ukraine. They are hoping to be get lifted by the Indian government by using the Indian officials. So to evacuate the Indian student, the Indian government launched an operation called the Operation Ganga. Till now, the 5 special flights of the Air India has been launched. 5 special flight carrying the 1,000 Indian has been landed in India. But those who has not been able to catch the flights, those students were advised by the Indian embassy over there and the Indian government to cross over the Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania, by using the Ukraine-Poland border, by using the Ukraine-Hungarian border, Romanian border and the Czechoslovakian border. Then the Indian government were sending the planes over there in their capitals, and from there the Indian government is picking up the students for their home India. This is how the Indian government is trying to evacuate. But when the Indian students were tried to cross the Ukrainian border, then those students have harassed, molested and beaten by the Ukrainian girls. That actually happened in the Ukraine-Poland border. That not had happened in the other borders. In Ukraine-Hungarian border, Czechoslovakia border or the Romanian border has not happened. This kind of incident has not happened. But these incidents has happened in Ukraine-Poland border specifically. And they were not allowed to cross to the Poland. They were not allowed to cross to the Poland because the Ukrainian authorities were allowing their own populations to cross over. And the Ukrainian police and the army even fired the shots in the air and attempting to drive their cars into the crowds. The students have alleged that the army police and the army forces has beaten and kicked off their goods. Ukrainian guards makes the situation worse for the students, those who were there to pursue their medical study. The Indian students are being tortured, women students are being harassed, heckled, and the women students are being pulled by their hair and hit by the rods by the Ukrainian army, by the Ukrainian guards and the Ukrainian police. Some women students have suffered some kind of injuries in their body. So this kind of incidents is being going on in the Ukrainian-Poland border. And Indian government has advised those students to cross over the Poland border. Until then, the Indian government has not been able to return those students from there in the country India. So the Ukraine are now trying to take the revenge against India by harassing the Indian students. They are doing this because the India abstained from the voting in the United Nations Security Council biased resolution that was proposed by the USA and the Albania. And that resolution was vetoed by the Russia. So the resolution was dead when it was born. Due to the Russian veto, the resolution moved to the UN General Assembly for the vote. Again, the India abstains from the United Nations Security Council procedural vote to call for the General Assembly session on the Ukraine. So the Indian have to remain neutral on the Ukrainian issue. Yes, we know that the Ukrainian populations are facing the humanitarian crisis due to the Russian aggressions. But that do not give them the permissions to heckle the Indian students. That do not give them the free hand. They will going to torture the Indian students in their soil. So Indian government have to raise the issue on the United Nations or any other renowned stages, because this is an act of the racism and the humanitarian crisis for the Indian students. Not only the Indian students, but the Chinese students are also facing same kind of problems, same kind of grave problems. Their problems have become the bigger and the grave because the Chinese government is firmly standing with the Russia on the United Nations Security Council and every platform, every other the global platform. The Chinese students are also facing the problems due to the fake news being spread by the Western media houses. As you know, the Ukrainian government has banned the travel for the men whose age between the 18 to 60 because Ukrainian government want them to fight against Russia. So the women are fleeing Ukraine to neighboring nations Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Romania. But a fake news was spread by the social media groups and the Western groups was that as the Chinese women number are decreasing in nature, so the China is willing to take the beautiful Ukrainian women. And that is a fake news, and that news has spread like the fire. Spread like fire, and the tremendous hate grows against the Chinese population. That is why the conception has grown among the Chinese population that the China is trying to use the Ukrainian populations to grow their population growth. But that is not the news. That is a false news. That's why the Chinese government issue an advisory for the students of the China that if someone asks them where they are from, they should not come up with the China as the population at the region of their region that where they came from. They have to mention that they have came from either from the Korea, South Korea or the Japan. Then and only then the Ukrainian populations will going to give them the some relief. So these are the things are actually happening over there in the Ukraine. So the Ukraine have to take this issue on hand instead of having those problems they are facing from the Russia. The China has also advised its students to stay over there in the bunkers. Even the African students are facing the racism for their black skin color. The Ukrainian authorities are asking them what they are doing. They are also there for the medical study. They have to give them some space for the study. Maybe their countries do not have the medical educations in the proper manner, but they are there to have their study. So this is a kind of racism is going on in the Ukraine. They are being asked by the Ukrainian authorities that why they are living over there. But after giving the proper answer, they are not letting them go to cross them into the other nations for saving their lives. So the Ukrainian authorities are heckle the Indian student because they are allowing their own citizens to cross over first. This war has become an propaganda war, the propaganda against Russia by using the Western media. I will not going to tell you some story on the basis of the Western media, because Western medias are doing this kind of things since the World War II had actually ended. And the India should not stand with the Ukraine. They should not. So understand this crisis. The people should not follow the Western news channel. And India should not stand with Ukraine because the Ukraine snubbed the India when the India tested the Pokhran nuclear test on 1992. Then the matter went to the United Nations Security Council. And then they voted against the India. But the Russia saved us. The Ukraine always supported the Pakistan on the Kashmir issue. The Ukraine also sold the T-80 tanks to the terrorism infested Pakistan for the $600 million 100 tank. They sold 100 tank and signed $80 million deal in 2021 to repair those 100 tanks. And also the West is also lecturing the Ukraine, the Russia, by doing the nonsensible meeting. West is not helping the Ukraine. They are lecturing them. They are lecturing them by doing this thing, by doing that thing. But they are not coming up with the weapons. The weapons the United States have, weapons the other Western European countries have. They have to come up with that. Because they encourage the Ukraine to go into the war against the Russia, the massive Russian weaponry. They cannot win this kind of unequal war, but they pushed the Ukraine to go into the war. If the West and the USA really wants to protect the Ukraine, then they have to come up with a weapon, then the solid things. But the Biden government is not willing to engage with the Russia, because they know that if they will going to engage with the Russia, then the third world war will break out. So the Ukraine has become the pawn on the hands of the Europe and the USA. They need to be remain neutral when they should remain neutral, and they needed to be remain neutral. When, as the India stand during 1945 or 1947 up to the 1991, India was non-aligned. So if some kind of comedian president is there, then this kind of things will going to happen. These kind of things are bound to happen with the Ukraine, because he is there to do the comedy. Then the comedy circus is going on in Ukraine because of the blunder made by the USA and the Western Europe. And India should not forget the contribution of Russia during the 1971 war, when the USA and the UK was on the side of the authoritarian Pakistan regime. They helped the Pakistan. They wanted to help the Pakistan. That is why the USA sent the troops, sent the aircraft carriers, sent the destroyers, sent the frigates in the Indian Ocean region. But the Russia saved us by sending the nuclear submarines in the Indian Ocean's water, in the Bay of Bengal. So during the Doklam issue, during the Ladakh issue, when the China actually was aggressive, then the Russia also helped us. So the Russia also vetoed the every move in the United Nations Security Council by the Western European nations and the USA. Every time Russia saved us by vetoed something which came against India. So India has to stand with Russia. That does not mean that we are against Ukraine. For the Ukraine, we cannot blow our all-weather friend Russia. Russia is our all-weather friend. We have to stand with them. So the Indian government have to talk with the Ukrainian authorities and resolve this matter immediately, amicably, by talking with the Russia, because Russia is empowered. It is an unequal war that the Ukraine is fighting actually.